Douglas, we're getting reports of a ceasefire in Sanaa after those fierce clashes by the presidential palace. What are the chances of it holding, do you think?
Well, obviously, I'm not an oracle, but what I can say is we need to be extremely prudent here. We have seen similar ceasefires in the past. This is not a conflict that was born overnight. The Houthis and the government have been basically at each other's throats. They've been fighting pitched battles on and off over the past decade, and perhaps the bloodiest fighting was from 2004 to 2010, over 6 years, and at the end of that period, they signed a ceasefire. Now, as for the events today, obviously, you know, everything's coming a few years, 3.5 years after popular uprising led to the ouster of the then president of the country, Ali Saleh, and everything since then has been about trying to repatch Yemen back together, try to build a unity government. By the looks of things on the ground, at least earlier today, that isn't happening. It hasn't been happening. You said the Houthis seized control of the capital several months ago, September. But beyond the capital, really, the government only controls the palace and the capital. Beyond that, the Houthis have been advancing throughout mostly Sunni areas of Yemen, taking control of a lot of regions, which they now are basically almost nothing is under government control these days in Yemen. So the ceasefire, a lot of people might say it's not a question of, you know, of how long it will hold, but when it will really break, because going by past precedent, it doesn't look too good. And, you know, what are the Houthis after? They're vehemently opposed to the new constitution. That's one of the sparks to the latest violence, a constitution being drafted by the new government, which would basically create a federal Yemen, one divided into 6 regions. That is something the Houthis oppose, and they're taking the battle to the street. So my gut feeling is that this is probably temporary, unfortunately, if you're going to look at what's happened in the past.
Now, of course, people in the region keeping a close eye on events in Yemen. Why is what's happening there significant outside of the country?
Well, you know, it's interesting. We don't speak about Yemen every day here in the studio. And when we do, it's often in relation to the global counterterrorism fight. Why? The United States has made Yemen one of its sort of cornerstone allies in the fight, in the regional fight against terrorism. It is home, this country, it is the home base, really, of al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. You know, al-Qaeda is divided into several branches. This is seen as perhaps the most dangerous and most active branch of al-Qaeda. So the U.S. regularly conducts drone strikes in this country, and the president, Abed Rabu Mansur Hadi, has been a real ally of the United States in supporting these drone strikes. And I may mention, you're probably not surprised that the Houthis are very much opposed to this policy. So yes, it could ultimately, how things pan out in Yemen today on the street, on the ground, could have implications for this global counterterrorism fight really spearheaded by the United States.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for that analysis, Douglas.